Welcome to Developing the Leader Within podcast, the podcast that brings you leadership insights from the brightest minds shaping our world. Join us as we dive into conversation with trailblazers, innovators, and change makers, spanning every corner of the globe. Get ready to explore new perspectives, gain actionable insights, and become the leader the world needs today. Unleash your potential. Tune into Developing the Leader Within podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Let's embark on this transformative journey together. Developing the Leader Within podcast, leading beyond limits.
Welcome back, everyone. Today, we continue to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month and are speaking with Illianna Costa. Illianna has 20 years of professional experience in ad tech partnerships and media sales. Today, she is a senior manager in LinkedIn Business Development Organization, managing global ad tech partnerships that accelerate innovation, revenue, and customer growth at LinkedIn. Illianna, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, I'm excited about this conversation. Folks, we will be speaking about unlocking digital power, how leadership and advertising can help elevate the Hispanic community. And we know we need a lot of help in that regard. But before we get into that great conversations, tell us a little about you.
Yeah, I am currently dialing in from my home office in South Florida, close to Miami. I've been here for a few years, but originally born and raised in New York. Have been in the advertising realm for 20 plus years. I don't want to date myself, but that's where I'm at, in different capacities, but mainly within sales and partnerships, and most recently within business development, which sits within our LinkedIn product org. So really have seen advertising from different lenses, really understanding not only from a platform perspective, but also from a brand perspective and a product perspective, really being able to figure out like what is it that's going to resonate with brands and organizations? How can we use our superpowers within the platforms to help drive and propel a customer's business, but more so looking within too, like how are we managing that, like as leaders, as professionals, as experts in our fields, how are we managing that and being able to excel within our careers while we're all doing that work. And I would love to kind of talk a little bit more about that through our conversation today, because I think it does start within and how we're managing our teams, our businesses, our companies, that then we can help drive that incremental value externally, because it all starts within and at home.
As we're going to develop this conversation, and we're talking about Hispanic Heritage Month, there's a lot of us around this nation from all flavors and all places in our world. And we accumulate in our, what we call continental U.S. to add the sazon, the flavor that the world needs. And so a lot of times enterprises, organizations, companies have hired Latino workforce for different things and different educational levels and experiences.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes that trajectory, that path forward is not as clear for the Latino community as it is for others. So I wanted to ask you, what strategies can organizations implement to develop more Latino leaders and create pathways for their advancement, particularly through the sponsorship and mentorship programs, and how can this impact overall business performance?
Yeah, I love that question. First, I'll say it's interesting because I personally know the need for these types of programs within organizations, right? Like I grew up in a family and a household that was like, you should be happy for what you have, calladita te ves más bonita, right? So you should be happy with the seat that you have, don't ask for more, etc. And so that on top of, our different lived experiences have shaped us in a way that is very different from our, non-Latino counterparts. And so there is a more concerted and intentional effort that needs to be put on, the Black and Latino community within organizations, right? And things like developing programs that are specific to these organizations, taking into consideration the cultural nuances and the lived experiences of those who these programs are intended for. You mentioned around mentorship and sponsorship, it is really important and incredible if our organizations can devise mentorship programs to connect leaders within the organization with Latino talent within the organizations, right? That's info sharing, that's guiding them through their careers, that's helping them build confidence. Letting them know like they're not alone within this organization when many times we feel like we're the only ones. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times I've been in conference rooms and I am literally the only Latina and the only Latina woman in the room. And it does feel a little lonely, right? And so when you have these mentorship programs that allow you to learn from other leaders that have done this before, who are seasoned, or as you mentioned, sasso now within their careers that are helping us establish our careers and also identify new paths for us, that really, really helps us. In addition to that, it helps us grow our community, grow our network, gain more sponsorship within the organization. It helps us become even that much more loyal to organizations because now we trust them because we realize the investment that these organizations are making within us, their intentional effort to support my development, my growth, my learning. And so as a result of that, increased confidence and that loyalty, you're going to retain me as an employee. You're also going to see me crush it, right? Because you're giving me all these tools and you're allowing me to learn these new skills to perform stronger. And so, developing these programs, whether that be skills development programs to help identify new skills, whether that be mentorship programs to connect leaders with other leaders, whether that be investing in learning and development through different courses or workshops that could help support the Latino community within your organization. I think these types of opportunities are opportunities that I for sure did not think I would ever have access to. And having had access to them later in my career, I see the incredible impact it has had on me and my career. And I always almost wish I would have had access to that much, much sooner because I feel like I would have evolved even sooner. But it's a process, right? Like we're all on a journey. And I think part of the advantage of these programs is to allow people to flourish on those journeys within the organizations.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. And case in point, I'll share real quickly a young lady I had the fortune, a blessing to mentor and sponsor through her trajectory is now the head of the organization that I was a manager at. So,
Okay.
you have to invest in your people. Now, it came from a fellow Latino, which was, it was a different feeling. I'll tell you right off the bat, right? I was feeling like I'm investing in the future of the Latino impact. I don't know how other managers felt when they were investing, but that's the standpoint that I had. And
Yeah.
she made it, she, crushed it. And
Yeah.
now she's leading that organization, and I'm so proud of her.
Think about it, in order to be one, you have to see one, right? And so sometimes these mentorship programs don't have, other Latino leaders, which is a problem within itself, right? Because you don't have enough Latinos within the organizations. But when you do, and you are fortunate to connect like someone like you who mentored and sponsored her, that probably gave her that extra jolt, right? That extra confidence because you're there and she could see herself within you and could see a future in the same way that you develop your career. So that's so powerful. And I love that you did that. And I hope that other leaders are following that same example and helping to invest in the talent of the future as well.
Yes, indeed. Now, I'll caveat all of that just for somebody that's thinking, oh, well, I don't have enough time in the organization. I was only with them for 7 months.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's not a time thing, it's an investment thing, it's a focus thing, it's a interest thing, right?
Yeah.
This is one of the things that we can do even with a short amount of time because it matters. Now, when we talk about equitable and inclusive spaces, because you're right, there was no other Latino leader other
Mhm.
than there was a lady in a different section. But in that group, it was hard to see yourself in another position if there was nobody there that fit your mold. And so,
Mhm.
how can companies build more equitable and inclusive spaces that empower Latino talent? And in what ways can this positively influence organizational culture, employee retention, and ultimately the bottom line, which is what companies are really looking at.
I mean, the bottom line is what it's all about, right? I mean, companies that prioritize inclusion not only create a stronger workplace culture, but they also help drive innovation and improve employee retention, because I talked about that before, and talking using your words, positively impact the bottom line. Diverse companies actually see 2.5 times higher cash flow per employee, and diverse management has been shown to increase, I think the number is by 20% on average in terms of increasing revenue. So for those who are thinking like, oh, it's not going to help, it's like, well, the numbers don't really lie, right? You can't fudge the black and white. And some companies are doing a lot in this space, fully aware of the impact of having a diverse and inclusive workforce. But there's others that are drastically lagging behind. And while I understand, especially in 2024, the last couple of years have been kind of crazy from an economic standpoint, there are a few things that companies can do to get started within this, right? Things like having inclusive recruiting strategies, right? Before even someone gets in, what are we doing to make sure that we're employing inclusive best practices when recruiting employees? Meaning, training and developing your hiring managers and recruiters to hire from diverse slates. Tap into new resources to gain access to diverse talent. And this is a big one. It's like, how are we eliminating bias when recruiting talent, which is huge. Things like, one of the things, I was the global co-chair of our Hispanics of LinkedIn Alliance, ERG, for a couple of years, and have been involved in the ERG space throughout my entire career at LinkedIn for the most part. But these employee resource groups are a huge opportunity to positively influence the culture of an organization. It helps drive retention. It helps promote belonging. You mentioned that before, belonging in the workplace. It allows an organization to celebrate the different cultures that exist within your organization. It helps to drive more confidence. It helps to upskill your ERG leaders and members. It helps to build more inclusivity, right? And intersectionality, celebrate intersectionality across the communities that exist within the company. I can go on. An employee resource group is definitely a passion point for me. But at the end of the day, like, employee resource groups are something that can be really small and start small and then grow from there. But it is a signal to your employees that you are committed to creating equitable and inclusive and a space of belonging for everyone in the workplace, even on a small scale, and then build from there. I think, also providing equitable access to opportunity and compensation. This is clearly an extra step here, but it's absolutely needed. The stats, I think it's when you have a Latina getting paid 53 cents on the dollar compared to our white male counterparts, that's an issue, right? How do we fix that? It's going to take for companies to regularly review compensation structures to ensure that Latino employees are compensated fairly and equitably across all roles. Is it an extra step? Yes. Will it take more, resources and time? Yes. But at the end of the day, pay disparities are a major factor in employee dissatisfaction and turnover. So if you address this, then you can significantly impact retention within your organizations. And so really at the end of the day, companies that invest in inclusive hiring best practices, leadership development, mentorship, and culturally sensitive practices, like ERGs and celebrating cultural moments, they create a thriving environment where Latino employees can excel. And that leads to greater organizational success. That leads to more Latino leaders in seats that we have not historically seen them in. And really, at the end of the day, driving a more positive impact on the bottom line, which is what it's all about within organizations.
Yeah, such a powerful position to be in. Now, we also have to remember, folks, when you're paying somebody a dollar, the value of the dollar has not gone up. It
Yes, sir.
actually has gone down. So if you're cheating somebody and giving them 57 cents off of that dollar, it ends up being like 35 cents. So
Yeah.
you have to think about these things. And I know corporations, we spoke about the bottom line, they're looking to save for them. But if you value your people, consider those things as an option to retain and enhance your workforce, because Hey, fact is that money talks, right? Everything else walks. And when
Really.
you are investing your life and your time and your talent, you are expecting an equal treasure to come back to support that investment. So think about it, folks. We need you.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the ad tech world, right? Digital advertising. What leadership qualities are essential for guiding teams in the rapidly changing digital advertising space? And how can Hispanic leaders in this industry shape and influence new trends?
Yeah. It's a good question. I think there's a few that come to mind immediately, and that's adopting a growth mindset. It allows you to be open to new ideas, new methods of executing initiatives, being open and receptive to feedback and new ideas, as I mentioned, from team members. I think in this climate particularly is providing psychologically safe spaces for people and teams to thrive in, to be able to share those new ideas and new perspectives and new methods, to be able to build a collaborative and trusting environment. I think is huge for leaders to employ that and to foster that type of culture within their teams. People who feel insecure or anxious, that definitely doesn't bode well in terms of their performance, and they question their ability a lot. And so providing that psychologically safe space for folks, people can um, share more, be okay to fail quick. But also, you have the ability to now actually coach people through these times, and not overlook things or say, oh, I'll address that later, but really coach people through skills gaps, and potential challenges that they may be overcoming. I think you mentioned before, around, think about it, people in terms of companies, but it's that short term pain, long term gain. And I think that's something that we as leaders today really, really have to make a concerted effort to coach. I can't tell you how many people I've mentored, or have led who didn't get constant feedback on how much more they could be doing or what they could be doing different or better, so that they can improve in their roles. And it really does take an intentional effort to coach someone versus do. That coupled with having impeccable communication and collaboration skills, tongue twisted there, to be able to communicate effectively across teams, across your organization, across your immediate teams. Relationship building, I think, is huge, particularly now in 2024, navigating through ambiguity because there's so many changes happening within the industry, and across the world. And with that, we need to be able to adapt to change. And change management is huge. I am a huge fan of change. For me, change equals growth, and change is completely inevitable. And how you react to that change is how successful you'll, come out on the other side of that. And so I think all those leadership qualities are really, really essential for guiding teams today, in this digital advertising space, especially when you have new technologies that are coming out like Gen AI, and things like ChatGPT and Bard and all these different tools that people are using. If you are still thinking like 2019, you're missing out on a huge opportunity to really operate more efficiently, more effectively, and lead, in a new way, because there's different generations that are in this workforce now, and having that first, quality I mentioned around growth mindset, is huge. As Latinos, and as far as this Latina, my whole life was based on overcoming adversity and working with very little or nothing at all. And so that navigating through ambiguity during this time, the last few years, I very much adopted a mindset of do what I can with what I have, and not really cry over the things I didn't have, but more so, this is what I have. And so I think having that positive outlook, also is a huge opportunity for leaders to adopt, to really find opportunity in every challenge, and find ways to reposition a challenge as an opportunity, as I just mentioned, and be able to, infuse new ideas into everything that we do to help keep up with the innovation, but also create our own strategies to overcome the adversity that we are facing in different industries, particularly with the economic climate the way it is. And so, yeah, I think that those are key that come to mind. I think growth mindset, change management, navigating through ambiguity. I know those are all like could be challenging, but I see them as really huge opportunities for positive change.
Very powerful points there. And I've always said that that life gets to strip you from opportunities when you focus on the lack and not what you have. And
Mhm.
that is the goal of when people say, "Oh, I don't get nowhere." Well, you don't get nowhere probably because you're focusing on the negative side when you should be looking at what you have and what you can work with. So great points there.
Can I make a comment on that really quick? Because I think, going back to change, because I have heard that a lot in terms of, oh, I'm not getting anywhere. I keep working really hard and it's not going anywhere, etc. And so I think of, going to the gym. I have a love hate relationship with the gym. But when you go to the gym, you don't expect to build, these big muscles and a lean body overnight, right? And let's say you're on a regimen for 60 days and you're not really seeing much change and you're like, what's happening here? I don't see the change that I'm looking to see. What's happening. You don't just sit down and wait for it to miraculously happen and for muscle just pop out, right? You say, you know what? I need to change up my routine. I need to do this different. I need to maybe cut calories, or I need to do more cardio or take supplements or vitamins, whatever, get more sleep, manage my stress levels, all the things, right? You start identifying what are the things that you can actually change, right? So you focus on the controllables, because there's certain things you cannot control on how your body reacts to something, but you can control how much workout, how much you eat, your manage your stress levels, etc. So I say the same thing to someone that says, oh, like, I'm not getting, a new job, or I'm not getting a promotion, etc. What are you not doing that you potentially have control over? Are you speaking to your manager? Are you understanding your skills gaps? Are you actually intentionally focusing time on developing new skills? Are you adopting a negative mindset? Are you helping to lead others with that negative mindset? Because your negative mindset could absolutely trickle onto others. And so I think a lot of times we need to, I say this often, but there's power in the pause and reassess. What are the things that you should keep on doing, and what are the things you have control over to change? And so I say that to that is really take a moment to pause and reassess. How can you do something different to achieve a different result that you're looking to see?
Absolutely. Now, and that's powerful. And things that we really need to think about, especially when you're an entrepreneur trying to make it out there. The mind, hey, there's a lot of playing room in there. And if
Yeah.
you give a lot of play to the things that are going to get you negative things, then you will see those things pop up. Now, when
Mm,
we talk about Hispanic entrepreneurship and professionals, there's a lot of tools. You mentioned some of them AIs, some of them things are coming up so instantly that we
mhm.
can't hardly ever keep up with it. But how
No,
can Hispanic entrepreneurs leverage the digital tools that are out there to build their brands and their businesses?
I think it's a good question. I think about my dad, who has owned or did own a supermarket for 30 plus years with his family, and he was still doing everything analog. Okay, which is like even painful for me to even think about. Everything from payroll to inventory, what projects needed to be completed, accounting, de todo, right? He's since retired, but while he was at the supermarket, I was always try to get him to adopt new systems, and he totally refused. Have a little scanner to scan each item, digital inventory, and no, he was not about it, and he was just happy with what he knew, what he was comfortable with. But really, he was just not comfortable with feeling uncomfortable, right? It's again thinking about the short-term pain of like learning a new system, adopting a new way, adopting new tools, uncomfortable for today, but essential for long-term growth, right? And so I think with that, as Hispanic entrepreneurs think about ways to build their brands, there's so many platforms and tools that you can leverage to reach your audience. to connect with them, to tell your story in a real, authentic way, and to find ways to scale your business. And so, depending on your brand, your product, your service, you can lean on some platforms over others. But there's one thing is for sure, and I know this from having entrepreneurs all around me. It's a lot. It can be a lot, particularly when it's like a lot of little things that you can find great ways to automate this, right? And so you tap into these different tools or programs that different platforms have now given access to businesses for, and it can exponentially help you operate more efficiently. So just think about it. Like, there are platforms like LinkedIn, not because I work there, but it's they give you the ability to reach over 1 billion professionals across the world. That offers an incredible opportunity to reach your audience at scale, and an audience that has buying power and decision making power. So huge, right? But if you're thinking as an entrepreneur or a small business, you're like, oh my gosh, I have to do all these things. I have to, manage my customers. I have to, reach out and send an email blast or whatever your tactics are in order to reach your audience. But there are so many platforms that can help you automate these processes, improve customer engagement, manage your social media, help you streamline operations, and enhance collaboration, which are all clearly essential for scaling and growing your business. For example, I'll give you examples like platforms like Zapier or HubSpot, which are great for SMBs and entrepreneurs. They can help automate repetitive tasks. It can save you time and improve operational efficiency. And that's huge because, as I mentioned before, like, we are trying to do a whole lot with less, right? Because you don't have the resources of a huge global organization, right? So you're trying to do a lot of things with little time and little resources. Things like or platforms like HubSpot again, or like a Zoho, can help you actually manage your CRM, which is great because now you can manage your customer interactions and your sales pipeline. And so I can go on and on, but there are so many platforms. The point is that there are tools that my dad would not use, but you can as an entrepreneur, as a small business. And we have to just recognize that we do not have to do everything manually ourselves anymore. In 2024, there are so many tools that for every little possible thing you can even imagine, you can leverage technology. And if it's used right, it can make the biggest difference in growing your business, in building your legacy as a Latino, as a Hispanic, and impacting generations to come, right? And these are things that you can pass down to your children and they can pass down to their children. But it starts with now, and it's adopting that growth mindset and realizing that even the things that you didn't think could be automated or that you can get support on, you can have access to it with minimal to little investment in being able to adopt those tools.
Absolutely. And for those entrepreneurs out there, fear, it's always a constant thing, right? It's coming to talk to you at every turn that you're going to make a decision. But as an entrepreneur, you can't fear technology because it is the way forward. It is the way forward. And so if you aim to be farther down the road that you think you are right now, engage technology, engage the changes in time, engage it wisely, but
Yeah.
engage it because that's where the power is. Now, I'll give you an example. There's AI is everywhere. And for podcasters, hey, you can go and glean on all kinds of tools. But there's opportunities to even partner with these AI companies,
Mhm.
and that will give you the leverage that you need while providing maybe a service on your end. So just think about the different ways you can leverage these tools and make it a win-win for everybody.
I have to mention this because this was I'm like, oh my gosh, on I think it was Thursday or Friday, I saw that Canva and ChatGPT have a partnership, and I haven't used it yet, y'all. But all I know is you can type in a prompt and what you need, and Canva can help build out a whole PowerPoint presentation. Do you understand the game changer that is? Because I remember spending horas, I mean horas por horas, building a deck that obviously even with AI, guys. You still have to edit and tailor it to your messaging and your company, but it's far less time to edit versus starting from scratch and adding animations and layering. You know what I'm talking about, Enrique. And so this is a game changing tool, and there's so many things that are just coming to market now that with just a little research to see what would make the most sense for your business, oh my gosh, you can really, really help to save time and drive more efficiency. It's amazing.
I agree. And everybody's doing some type of partnership. That was a great partnership there because they already have a great platform doing
Right.
great business. Now they're just adding the just the wealth of knowledge on the net all coming into providing you a service. And so that's what I mean, right? It's a great example there.
Yeah.
So we spoke earlier about the young Latinos, right? The young Hispanics that are growing up, trying their hand at the world,
Mhm.
trying their hand at leadership, and all these different tools. So, how can we empower the youth that is coming up behind us, that is trying to make their way in life, to with the skills and the resources that they should have to focus and succeed in their leadership journey?
Yeah, it's a great question and one that I'm really passionate about. I just joined the board of Scholar CC a couple months ago, which is an organization that helps to empower young children of color within the South Florida region to gain access to mentorship and access to opportunity to really understand what kind of careers are out there and how they can also excel within their collegiate careers and journeys, to establish, what the future looks like. And it really falls in line with this is empowering your young Hispanics to pursue careers in digital advertising and leadership roles. It really does require a multifaceted approach that focuses on early education, which is why I joined that board, because it is educating them early on the opportunities that exist out in market. It's not just things that maybe you grew up listening to and me too around becoming a lawyer or a doctor. It's what else is out there. Like, if I'm being honest, I never strived for a career in digital advertising. I was never like, I want to work in tech. That just wasn't on my bingo card. I was, aiming to be a doctor or a physical therapist, something in medicine. But then I started to become more aware of these alternate careers in high school, maybe like later, I think it was like junior or senior year. But one of the things that I wish I had access to earlier and that I actually sought out was mentorship. So it's that early education and seeking mentorship. You can get a mentor for anywhere, whether it be in school, a family member, a neighbor, someone who you feel like you trust and can support you on your journey. And this mentor also doesn't have to be across everything. It could be just within one vertical of your life, right? Skills development around developing leadership skills, communication skills, collaboration skills, key decision and effective decision making skills, and even public speaking. I was very nervous public speaking when I was younger, and I mean, sweaty palms, nervous, shaky, all the things. And now, because I do it so much, it just is very inherent to me. But as a young Latino and Hispanic navigating your career, it's really, really important that you tap into those skills that I just mentioned around communication and public speaking, and collaboration, problem solving, and also emotional intelligence. Like emotional intelligence in bold, capitalized, italics, underline, however you want to say it, is going to be huge, because now you can really understand, you know, how to communicate effectively with someone, how to regulate your own emotions before responding. How are you showing up in the workplace? How do you want to show up in the workplace? And so, whether you decide to work for a small or large organization, these are all skills that you'll need to tap into as a young professional to advance in your career. Those interpersonal skills, right? So you can communicate with folks at different levels. And so, as it relates to the advertising industry or the digital landscape, we talked about this a couple times today, but it's, innovation is happening all around us. So, what are you doing as a young professional to stay ahead of the trends? There's so many tools that you can tap into to help stay informed of those trends. But it's also, how do you tap into your cultural experiences to bring new perspectives when these trends are coming out. What are your thoughts and perspectives? What are the questions you have around this? What are your experiences that you can bring into conversations that you might be in? I say all this to say is that, I keep on saying communication, and I say, bring your perspective and bringing your own ideas, etc. But it's all about using your voice. I know early in my career, and even up until like maybe less than a decade ago, I did not use my voice, right? I would have a question or a comment, or I wanted to challenge something because it didn't make sense for what we were trying to achieve. And so often I would just be quiet. It's like a seat warmer. And here I am at this conference table or room, and I just didn't have the confidence to use my voice. But I feel now with this younger generation, because we are empowering them with so many tools that they can learn, what are the trends they can learn, new resources that are available. I feel like a different renewed energy and confidence that's instilled within them. And so I hope that we'll start to see even louder voices that are lending constructively to conversations and constructively to stories that we want to be told. And so I think that, all those skills and all those things that you could be doing are what is necessary for young professionals. But I will harp on one last thing that I would be remiss not to say is around relationships and networking. Relationships are everything. I can't tell you, most people that are in C-suite did not go online to apply for a C-suite role. They were leveraging their relationships to get indoors, and they did that by first networking, right? Networking everywhere you go. And I see, I talk to some college students about once a quarter or so in different forums, and I see it happening more and more, where you're seeing college students realizing the power of networking, the power of relationships to help them understand the landscape, and the industry. And in particular, there's so many different avenues you can go within the digital advertising industry. To help them advance. And so I leave you with that is, building all those skills, as I mentioned before, around, in terms of capturing them early, getting mentorship, investing in your skills around communication and problem solving, and emotional intelligence, interpersonal skills, but really build relationships, network like your life depended on it, but more is like network like your career depended on it, because it really is a lot of times of who you know versus what you know, but having the combination of both makes you like almost superhuman in many cases.
Absolutely. Now, I want to make sure that those that are mentoring, especially when you have the difference between those of us that grew half no digital age and half digital age, to those that are coming up straight digital, right? And there's a different perspective. I remember growing up, it was a, hey, how did history boom, 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 boom? And we
Mhm.
had to go research that. Right now, you could say, hey, Siri, hey, Alexa, give me 5 points. Hey, AI, give me 5 points for the last 20 years. What was,
Yeah,
and you'll get it. And so for
I had
those,
I had encyclopedias.
yep, and so did I. So, but it's important for the mentors to recognize that it is a different age. There is some still worth on history, but don't treat the new guys as the in the old way,
Mhm.
because you're going to lose them. You're going to lose them. It's incumbent on the mentors to be equally savvy in what's going on today for you to make that connection. So just a little caveat for those that are of the older age to consider.
We're
So
not old, okay? We're Sasso now.
it's
That's
also now. Hey, let's keep that word in there since we're in Hispanic Heritage Month. Now, what do you have coming up, and how can the listener and viewer get a hold of you if they want to chat with you a little more?
Yeah, I just dropped a course about a month ago on how employee resource groups can better operationalize themselves within the organization, and so that's really exciting because it's definitely a passion point of mine. We talked about it before and how that could really help to boost individuals' confidence, upskill employee resource group leaders, reduce churn, help with retention, and obviously help the bottom line. And so released that course about a month ago, and I'm working on a couple of other leadership courses that will touch on mastering self-awareness and finding new ways to become better leaders and contributors within your organization. I'm really passionate about that. And then, of course, you can find me on LinkedIn, Illianna Acosta, or on illiannacosta.com, and send me a message directly from there.
All right, folks. Well, we'll have all those links as part of the video and the show notes for you to get a hold of Illianna and all she's doing and be able to listen or view what she is putting out there. So today's episode is sponsored by Fantail Services and Superpass, which are powering our website and app, Southern Sweet and Sassy Coffee, the Outlier Project, and dooko. And if you've enjoyed this episode and learned something interesting about the topic covered today, make sure to subscribe and let us know by leaving a comment. And we're always looking for new ideas and guests that we can have on our show. So if you know of someone or a topic that you would like featured on the podcast or want to sponsor our show, we love to hear about it by emailing us at triadleadershipsolutions@gmail.com. This podcast is brought to you by StreamYard, a browser-based tool that lets you live stream to any platform and record podcasts in studio quality, and we're using it to record this podcast. Be sure to tune in next week for another episode where we dissect leadership from another angle. And as we like to end the show, success to you.